labbra rosse. Ciao a tutti, mi chiamo Arlette, io sono un'insegnante di italiano e sono anche una cantante. Allora, oggi vorrei parlare un po' di come si impara una nuova lingua. Cercherò di parlare il più possibile in italiano, perché non voglio essere una di quelle persone che dicono online, sai, io parlo 5 lingue and io sono esperto nell'insegnamento di qualsiasi lingua, però non si sente mai queste persone parlando queste lingue, ok? You hear them only talking English. So vorrei adesso mostrarvi che sì, veramente Arlette è fluente in italiano. Io non parlo perfettamente, sbaglio ogni tanto, non ho un accento perfetto, però io riesco ad esprimermi, a essere capito e a capire l'italiano, ok? Questo vuol dire essere fluente, non perfetto, però fluente sì, ok? Allora, purtroppo c'è questa percezione che dopo una certa età non si può più imparare una nuova lingua. Proprio sbagliato, sbagliatissimo, non è vero, ok? Noi diciamo, oh, noi sono troppo vecchio, non ce la faccio. Guarda, i bambini sì, loro riescono ad imparare nuove lingue perché sono come spugne, però noi no. Sbagliato. Devo dire sbagliato perché, guarda me, io non sono nata in Italia, non sono cresciuta in Italia, non stavo in Italia quando ero bambina, io ero a Trinidad, al sole, okay, for all my childhood, up until adulthood. When I was an adult, then I came to New York and then I started my whole Italian journey. I want to tell you that all the fears and all of the worries and all of the hang-ups and all of the limitations that we put on ourselves, we have to put them all aside. Okay, so now let's get into it. Let's get into how this little girl from Trinidad moved to New York and became fluent in Italian and a singer, an Italian teacher, and all that good stuff. Okay, so when I was in my early 20s, myself and a couple of my girlfriends, we said, okay, we wanted to move to New York. We just decided that we wanted to do that. So we decided that we would take our SATs and try to get scholarships for universities in New York. Now, at the time, we were very studious and very nerdy, so we aced the SATs, and we all ended up getting really good scholarships to come to New York. So yay. I went to LIU. Now, I didn't have any money. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, okay, when I first came to New York. So I was looking for a job to make some extra money. Now, I always sang when I was in Trinidad. I used to sing in the church choir. I answered this ad that was for a singer to join an Italian wedding band. And I started to sing with this band called Immersion, bunch of great Italian guys. Now, while I was singing with them, I remember we did one gig at this restaurant. And the restaurant owner, he pulled me aside and he said, listen, I have a friend. He's coming in from Rome. He's a great musician, great singer. He's coming in from Rome and he's looking for a singer to work with, to become a duo. Can I give him your number? And I'm like, all right, yeah, you can go ahead, give him my number. And so he did. So here calls me Luigi. Luigi and I started to work together. And then, I guess we really started to work together because shortly after that, we were married. So we were a duo and I was singing and he was singing and playing the keyboards as well. Remember, he's Italian and he's singing mostly in Italian. And I was singing, the English songs. I have to say that I fell in love with the Italian songs that he was singing. And I was so curious as to what he was singing. I wanted to understand and, I was so into it. And I really fell in love with Italian music generally. So I used to try to figure out what the songs meant. I used to look for translations and try to figure out what the songs meant. Another thing that I was very fortunate for is that because Luigi spoke so little English, there was a lot of Italian that was going on in my house, whether it was the stuff that he was listening to or whether it was his family from Rome that used to visit us very often in New York. I mean, they would come and they would stay and they would stay and they would stay and stay. But it happened to be great for me because I got this full immersion Italian experience without ever even, it was really just passive listening. I was not studying, I wasn't doing anything. I was just being around them. So fast forward to about 5 years, I think, into our marriage. And I remember the moment we were at a gig and Luigi and I were singing at this gig. And at the moment I was sitting at the bar and Luigi was talking to a fellow musician, a guitar player. And I just remember I had this aha moment, this light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm understanding everything they're saying. I was like, wow. Now, mind you, I never spoke the language. I still couldn't speak it at that point. But that was a big step for me to realize that I no longer had to like just smile at everybody and just pretend I understood what was going on. No, I understood what was going on. Okay. So I have to say that passively listening to Italian, whether it be in the music that Luigi was playing or whether it would be in the immersion of being around his family and friends speaking Italian, I would say that at the 5-year mark, that allowed me to fully understand Italian, okay? Now, I would not say that that is the way, passively listening. I would not say that is the best way to learn any language because, first of all, people, it took me 5 years. Ain't nobody got time for that. Imagine if I had coupled that full immersion in Italian that I was lucky enough to have. If I had coupled that with studies, just the bare minimum of vocabulary and grammar, how much further would I have been along in those 5 years, right? And if I had pushed myself to speak sooner, how much faster would this process have been? Now, at that point, I really decided I'm going to start to speak the language. So I guess that in summary, I would say that I am fluent in Italian today because I, for a long time, was passively listening to dialogues in Italian. I also was singing Italian songs, and this way for me was gaining comprehensible input. I'm sure you've heard of comprehensible input before, but basically what it is that you're listening to stuff that you understand. You're not just listening to random conversations, but you know and are familiar with the translation of what you are listening to. You have an idea of what you're listening to. So the comprehensible input, in my opinion, definitely accelerates the learning process. So for me, it was the singing of the music. It was the passive listening, and also people I had motivation. I remember in the early stages of our marriage when Luigi took me to Italy to meet the family. And I remember we were at a table with a whole bunch of Italians and everyone is very loud and very animated. And I was like, oh my God, is everybody okay? Like, are they fighting? What's going on? But I realized afterwards that was just the way they talk. That's just the way they roll. So I just kind of fell into and rolled with it as they did. So it was wonderful being around everybody, but I was very lost because I didn't know what everybody was saying. I really wanted to know what everybody was saying about me. But just generally, I was so tired of just being like, yeah. I really wanted to understand what everybody was saying. So there was a little start of my motivation to really understand Italian. So anyway, one day I'm in the airport in Italy, in Rome, Fiumicino. And I remember I was rummaging through this CD bin. Remember, we had CDs at the time, and we would pop our CDs in and listen to them on the flights, right? We didn't have streaming and all that at that time. Anyway, so I was looking in the CD bin and I was digging, and I found this CD and it was called Greatest Hits of this artist called Georgia. So I was like, okay, she's cute. Let's hear what she has to say. Let's hear her voice. Let's hear her music. When I tell you, I was so blown away by this artist. I was blown away by her voice, her style of music. It was very pop-like, some of the songs were really actually Whitney Houston-esque. And I fell in love with this artist. And I have to tell you, I started to study the songs. I started learning how to sing them so I could perform some of them in my live performances too. If you're listening, Georgia, if you ever listen to this video, devo dire grazie per tutto quello che hai fatto per me, anche senza sapere. So, what's your motivation? I'll tell you what your motivation is. Being able to communicate in the language of your dreams, because Italian is one of the most beautiful languages in the world. And being able to get to that point where you are like me and you go, oh my God, I am finally speaking Italian. That is your goal, long-term goal, and that's going to be your anchor of motivation. If you treat the learning of Italian as being in for the long haul, as a beautiful journey and not as a, oh my God, focus, I have to become fluent in 30 days. Which, by the way, I hate to hear people say that because, come on, how are you going to become fluent in 30 days? Like, how? Now, in all fairness and in all full disclosure, Luigi and I were married for about 25 years. So that's a lot of Italian exposure and immersion, okay? And we're still very good friends today, and we have 2 beautiful children together. So I still get my Italian immersion, okay? He's still around, annoying the crap out of me. But, I'm still getting my immersion. So I don't want you guys to think that it's going to be a breeze to get to the level of fluency that I'm at. I just want you to know that it's very possible for you to become conversational in Italian. Just keep consistent, keep studying, and keep consistent. And remember, you're in it for the long haul, and make it a beautiful journey with small wins along the way. Okay, so what's your plan? Where do you go from here? How are you going to get to learn to become fluent in Italian? I would say let's start with all of the free tools that are available for you online. You have, for passive listening, there's so many options. You could listen to podcasts in Italian. You could listen to Italian music. You could find movies that are in Italian and listen to that. All of these are passive ways of getting the Italian in there, which is how I started off and I was able to understand Italian. For a more proactive approach, I would definitely do something like on my channel that I offer, which is the chance to be able to sing along to beautiful Italian songs, familiar Italian songs, while already looking at the translation so you know what you're saying. Remember what I was telling you about comprehensible input? That's a great way to get it done. I remember one Italian guy who I was actually speaking to in English, and I asked him, oh my God, how did you learn English so well? He says, I listened to the Beatles. He learned English from listening to the Beatles, okay? Just think about that. So it is a valid and legitimate way of learning, which is through music. There are so many apps that you can use. And I know people say, oh, you don't, become fluent from apps. Okay, but you learn vocabulary and it definitely familiarizes you with the sound of the Italian language. So do your apps. Ascolta, which is listen. Parla, which is speak. And canta, which is sing. Ascolta, parla, canta. Okay? Enjoy your journey. Enjoy learning the most beautiful language in the world. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again in the next video.